Welcome back to the Farce the Nation Zoomcast. This is Jahi Harvey, your host. And of course, I got some great friends of the show that on short notice show up like men and men. I give them props. First up, we got Gary Robinson. He is a social worker and a sergeant in the United States Army, studied social work at the University of Akron and currently lives in Akron. Welcome to the show, Gary.
Hey, what's up?
And we have Amanda. Amanda Griffin is currently an HR specialist for the Defense Logistics Agency. She has a master's in human resources from Wilberforce University, 13 years in the Army National Guard. And of course, she is past matron of Grace Chapter 100 of Prince Hall's Grand Lodge of Ohio. Welcome back to the show, Amanda.
Hello.
And we have Jamie Kowalski. Jamie Kowalski is a friend of the show and has done nothing remotely important in his entire life. We appreciate him for showing up. No, Jamie has an extensive background. He's dealt with homelessness. He's dealt with all manners of government work. And Jamie, do you have any special gifts, skills that you would like to share with the group today?
I can do some mean things with a cherry stem.
All right. And with that being said, welcome to the show.
One more thing. If that's wrong, there's no need for me to be right.
All right. So I was going to start off in a different direction, but I think we're going to go ahead and start with the background that Amanda chose to have for the show today. Apparently, she's not appearing alone. She decided to bring a friend with her. And the friend is like looking in the background like ride or die, like what we doing today? So
that's our slogan. Cause I'm K-High. So it's Kamala, we ain't playing Harris. That's her name.
Oh, is that what it is?
we here to play. What do y'all want?
Well, she looks like she probably is the front runner right now. I mean, we all saw the notes on Biden's paperwork with her name at the very top of the list. So, I mean, it's looking like that's where we headed. What do you guys think?
I think that picture makes her look like she thinks she caught a fish this big.
But yeah, I knew she was going to be the front runner only because I've been following the campaign very hard, and I follow it because I'm affected by it, seeing as how I work for the DOD. Whomever the vice president is typically going to be my boss or someone who writes our policy. So we follow the elections pretty close. I can't campaign or anything, but we do follow it. So we knew Kamala was on the top of the list, I think mainly because, and it was her, and I believe it was Karen Bass was the other one. And that's because they're both from California. So when you think about like the grand scheme of things, if we pull Kamala Harris out of the Senate, they'll replace her with another Democrat. No problem. Or independent, I should say.
That's a good point.
No problem. Even with Karen Bass. If she gets pulled out of the House, they'll be replaced with another Democrat, as opposed to someone like Elizabeth Warren, who is in a mainly Republican state. And if they do pull her, then they run the risk of losing that Senate seat to a Republican come next election. I'm not saying that's the main factor.
No, but I mean, it definitely is. That is definitely a factor. You have to think about everybody else downstream as well. So that does make sense. I mean, if I knew we were going background heavy today, I would have pulled out my Tammy Duckworth. But we'll see. Jamie, what do you think? Or Gary, what do you think?
Well, there's several problems with Kamala Harris. First off, some of the things she did as Attorney General when when kids were truant, she was locking up parents, and that is absolutely true. I see you shaking your head.
It's not true, but I'll wait till you finish to tell you how it's not true.
And there was other occasions where it was Black people who were absolutely innocent in the state of California, and she upheld their imprisonment, and also on top of that, like she waffles between, am I Black or am I Indian? you know, her heritage also. So she plays around in the zone with black people, but on the other edge of it, she jumps into whole other zones when she finds it convenient.
Okay, so man, I'm gonna let you respond. I think that if you are biracial, I think that's just a line that you have to kind of straddle anyway. You gotta kind of have to navigate that lane. But Amanda, I'm gonna let you respond to that, and then Jamie, I'll let you follow up.
Okay, starting from the beginning. Sorry.
Oh, you all right?
Yeah.
You okay?
My iPad
Did you fall or
I got
did
a little
the phone
tight
fall?
there. To start from the beginning,
Okay.
her tenure as Attorney General, the truancy, that was not her. Those were local DAs and Attorney General. So you got to understand the way California is structured. It's not structured like Ohio, where we have one Attorney General and he pretty much oversees the state. California is ran a little different. So with the truancy, could she have stepped in? Probably. But was it her lane to step in? See, you gotta understand the structure and
there's video clips of her talking about it.
And there's video clips of her getting the whole explanation and not just snippets. And see, that's why, because if you had asked me 2 years ago, I would have poised Elizabeth Warren to be the nominee, because I was Warren to the day I died. And then when I started to actually break it down and started to pay attention and actually saw past the rhetoric, then I started to realize that a lot of stuff that they blame on Kamala, like with the truancy, with the innocent, she wasn't even Attorney General then, but that's a whole different story. She walked into those situations. And again, you got to play the politics. You can't just go in the door rearranging everything your predecessor did. It has to follow the law
black people's frustration
and the chain of thing. But even with the black people, if you actually did the actual look-see, you'll see that under her tenure, black people or people across the board for drug charges, she didn't prosecute as many people as they tried to tell her she prosecuted. And then even she did, she rehabilitated a lot of them.
Let me step in for a second. I wonder, I guess, like, I think Amy Klobuchar was also a prosecutor as well, right? I wonder, like, from that perspective, like, if you choose that job, I mean, your job is to prosecute people. So yeah, I'm not caping for Kamala Harris. Is it Kamala Harris or Kamala Harris?
Kamala
Harris. Sorry. So I'm not caping for Kamala Harris, but I mean, if that's your job, you know, what are you gonna do? And how do you know that it's one thing if you're knowingly putting people in jail who are innocent? I mean, that's egregious. And I think across the board, I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
But if you're a prosecutor and your job is to, you know, prosecute people, I wonder how much we can really hold that against her if you went to law school and you decided to be a prosecutor. Somebody's got to do that job in the justice system.
Yeah.
I wonder if I would rather it be somebody, if it would be somebody that looks like me than somebody who only sees me, somebody that looks like me on the news or in rap videos. I don't know. Jamie, where are you at on this?
So before the apocalypse, I would say Kamala Harris would be poison on a ticket. She couldn't even make it to Iowa because she was incapable, like almost at a genetic level, of getting people excited about her candidacy. But the world has changed. And so now all of a sudden a sponge would be a hot commodity to run with Biden. It doesn't matter. This is all about Trump's performance. So it's not like Biden was ever going to pick Elizabeth Warren. He doesn't like progressives. Neither do the DNC. So it was Kamala Harris, a distant ninth, probably your girl Tammy Duckworth. I honestly hadn't heard the other candidate that Amanda had talked about.
Karen Bass, and she's good, but she doesn't make a lot of noise.
And that's the thing. I think what you're looking for is a bigger name that will give him some street cred. You know what I mean? Like,
You're better
I
off with
don't really
somebody.
care. I'm not even talking about just from a black perspective. Like, you know, there's only so much you're going to do there. And quite frankly, I think most people who are going to come out and vote on November 3rd are going to be, if you're black, you're probably going to vote for Biden. I think we all pretty much agreed there, I think. But
she's the pick that you make in this environment to get the suburban white vote, the suburban white women vote.
You think that's what you think
she
Kamala
does?
Can do that?
What was that?
You think Kamala can?
Yeah, she does well with suburban white women. I will agree to that.
Yeah, yes, of course she's going to do well, because right now that's the group of people who are really practicing the highest level of identitarian politics. So a woman of color on the Supreme Court, I'm for that. Of course, representation matters, and honestly, there never has been one, so great.
What about Kamala Harris?
That's not the trait that I would put first. In terms of her policy, honestly, part of the reason why she wasn't doing well in the primaries is because she doesn't really have any established or generally understood political principles. For example, she started out as a signatory in the Medicare for All bill. And then when that became politically uncomfortable early on, she retracted it. She actually said more than once, in more than one venue, televised, I was never really comfortable with it. And yet she's a responsible adult who knows how to sign her own name. And she signed her name to the bill. And that's just the biggest example in a field of examples. I also have problems with her record in California as the Attorney General. Prosecutorial discretion is a real thing. But I think the general mood should be for especially anybody leaning left of center, if you have the word prosecutor as a descriptor on your resume, you should be skeptical for the reasons, Jahi, you mentioned. You're going to law school with the express purpose of, and this is a political purpose, to be tough on crime. There's one prosecutor in the country that I'm aware of that I would not just consider, but absolutely push for. His name escapes me, but he was just elected to, it's San Francisco. He's a complete progressive. He's turning the prosecutorial role on its head. He's set on making sure that cops are punished when they act badly. He's absolutely dead set on prosecuting only violent criminals. Otherwise, he's going to work with the community to get them rehabilitated and keep them out.
Are you looking it up, Amanda?
No, I'm not looking at that.
I mean, but you have like Olu Stevens in Kentucky. He's a judge that is making sure that like it's not all white juries prosecuting black people. You had Mosby over there in Baltimore, who initially tried to do the right thing, but she was railroaded by the police over there. So I'm not like anti-prosecutor or anything like that, or trying to like put them on a stake or anything like that. But, you know, when it comes down to integrity and, you know, like you're looking at the election numbers, I want to know that you're going to do the right thing no matter what. And I don't
but
think
then you got to take into
no
account that some of these black people are just guilty. I mean, we can sit up here and argue all day and say, oh, well, she prosecuted a lot of black people. Maybe, but are a lot of them innocent? I mean,
the situations I'm talking about are ones where they were like pretty much proven innocent, and it happens all over in every state that these guys are proven innocent through DNA, surveillance, all kind of other things, and they're still in prison because the judge or the prosecutor refuses to reverse the rulings, and they have to sit there for years until appeals are all the way, you know, gone through.
Well,
but what I'm saying is that
I will say that, you know, if she is the one that is chosen, this is definitely not the last conversation that the nation is going to have on this topic. I appreciate the strong sentiment on both sides, as our president likes to say. But what do you think? What do you guys think about? What do you guys think about Stacey Abrams?
Thirst. I love her. I do. But she just.
You said thirst?
She went too hard. She went way too. She was doing photo shoots. She was. I mean, it's somewhere in there you have to show a little decorum, and she pretty much threw. I get what she was trying to do, and in a way, you'd be like, okay, you want to campaign for it, but she just went balls to the wall with it.
I didn't know she did. I didn't know she did all that.
Yeah, and she's backed by Oprah, and Oprah's Q rating is not as high as it used to be. I'm just saying that now.
Yeah, I know.
And then you got to look at her, and I hate to say it because I hate when people say you got to look at their experience, but you kind of gotta. She getting her feet wet, and I see great things out of Stacey Abrams. Don't get me wrong. And if it was the right world, she should have been the governor of Georgia.
The governor for sure.
But
there'd be a lot less people would have died.
That was tough, but she should have won. I don't know how you don't win that.
But if the highest position you got so far is a state senator, I mean,
what do you think about? What do you guys think about Keisha Lance Bottoms? That's Atlanta's mayor.
Yeah,
apparently she on the list somewhere too.
I mean, I think she did come across well when the city was under siege with like some of the riots going on and things like that, and her whole response to it, wasn't the greatest. I do think that she did make some excellent steps in challenging Kemp, but she did come across in an unfavorable way. And being part of elections is part of likability, and that was Hillary's main flaw. She was an unlikable candidate.
Yeah, Hillary
people flat out just didn't like Hillary.
I think it was a lot of people.
She got all of the same platform with, and it wasn't the name Hillary. She probably beats Trump by a landslide. But her name brought so much baggage with it that,
I think people were expecting that to be the case with Biden too, and it just didn't work out that way. People actually like Biden. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of Republicans that like Biden as well. Jamie, and I think you're one of the people that think people like him because he has a lot of Republican ideals, right?
I think he very well represents the Democrat Party right now, the DNC. There's nothing he's done in his career other than fumble things around and forgive the language, but it's appropriate, fuck them up. He's the architect of the drug war, even called Reagan an unseemly feminine name regarding his weakness about his stand on the drug, or his performance in the drug war up to that point. He put an entire generation of young black men in jail, and to this day crows about it. Says Hillary Clinton was wrong to apologize for the 94 crime.
He won't apologize for it.
Yeah. And I'm more interested in class than I am, like on an academic level, race. But you can't deny that race had. So I'm comfortable calling people Democrats like Joe Biden a racist, but not like the KKK kind. He's a functional racist, meaning the policies that he supports, I don't think he has any particular animus against people of color. Like if he had a magic wand, I don't think he'd say, let's put let's do specific harm to people who aren't white. But his political ambitions and the things he wanted to accomplish happened to require putting people of color and poor people in front of the train. And he did it without remorse to this day, as Rob just pointed out, without apology.
He did apologize.
When?
For the crime bill?
Can you send me that?
I was going to wait to finish, but I was going to go ahead and. the problem that I have is that, for one, if he's a racist, then I must be a racist too. Because for one, I read the crime bill. It was not totally the reason why mass incarcerations happened. Mass incarcerations happened because most of these states were ran by Republican governors. That's what brought about mass incarceration.
And it was cash incentive for
and to go back, we asked for the crime bill. It wasn't like Biden thought that up out of the mythical air. It was the Black Caucus went to him and told him the truth.
Don't let me get on.
Drafted up. So we can't just keep saying that he's a racist because he wrote what we asked him to write.
And Amanda, wasn't it also a lot of Black churches were behind it as well?
Yeah, Black pastors, Black leaders. We all, from Jesse Jackson to on down, they all went to him.
When they say that we don't care about black on black crime, quote unquote, black on black crime.
There's no such thing as black on black crime, but
of course. That's why I put it in air quotes. But like, you know, they say we don't care about it. We don't care about us harming each other.
Okay.
But the reason why, but there were a lot of churches that were on board with the crime bill too, and being tougher on crime because the thought process back then was if you're tougher on crime, you're going to quote unquote clean up your neighborhood. We all know better now. And I'm not giving Joe Biden a pass, but I think, you know, we know more now than we did decades before. I think right now, if people have jobs, they commit less crimes, period. Like if there
it is an economic thing.
If you're in a place where there are more opportunities, there's going to be less crime, period. So what is that?
And to piggyback on the crime bill, and I think this is why we keep losing this argument. When we keep talking about the crime bill and mass incarcerations, we got to learn and we got to educate people on the difference between the federal courts and the state courts. Because where we keep losing this argument is, if you look at the statistics in the federal courts, where the crime bill is actually used 90% of the time, Black people are not the ones in federal jails. We're in state and local jails, which is ran by state government, which is ran by governors.
With funding, if they have so many arrests within that jurisdiction.
Right, but that's ran by the state. That's not ran by the federal government. Because if that's the case, then they would have prosecuted Tamir Rice's officer because they would have been able to jump in. But they can't jump in. We have to learn the difference between the federal and the state courts because and this is where
I'm gonna let you get in, Jamie.
That's cool.
We don't look stupid, but I mean this is where we lose the argument because when they actually pull out the stats and they look at the federal jail population, it's not Black. Where it's mass incarceration, and I will never say that it is not mass incarceration, but where we go to jail at is the state and local level. Which so these laws are.
What's the top demographic?
If they get funding, if they put so many people in jail.
What's the for the federal then? Because I thought
the federal was even. It wasn't even 14% of the federal prisons were handled with Black people. And then if you also look at the sentencing, because you know with most states we have the 3 strikes and you're out rule or 3 strikes in his life. With the federal courts, they don't have that policy. They don't govern that. So at the most, even if we are Black and we get federal charges, we don't even see 5 years in the federal prison. Now, again, I'm not talking about the state level because the state level is where each state needs to be mindful of how their state House and their state Senate is ran. Because like even in Ohio, both sides are Republican. So if we want to get on the mass incarceration tip, then we need to make sure we vote out our state and House or state Senate and state House representatives. But in the federal level, and again, this is where we lose the argument. If you actually look at the statistics, we are not being jailed like we think we are, and we're not being jailed. And if we are being jailed, we're not being jailed for that long. And again, and that's the stat that they keep pulling out when they're saying there's no mass incarceration because. That's the stat that they're using. And we pulling out state stats. And that's where, again, the misdirect with and now where I did say, because I remember I did say he apologized. Where Biden apologized was that he understood that the states took the crime bill and flipped it to their liking as far as making the state
they got
law.
funding for it.
Right. That's where he apologized. But the
Right.
reason why he won't apologize for the actual mass incarcerations, because at a federal level where the crime bill was written for, they are not mass incarcerating Black people. So
It's not 14%, it's closer to 40. And the other thing is, you're absolutely right that the incarceration rate is, or the crime bill is just a piece of it, but it's also the drug war, which he is not just an advocate for, he's an architect.
He was not the architect of the
He is
drug
an
war.
architect.
I said an architect.
You gotta watch the video where he's talking about his little kids not being around these criminals. Like that whole, like if you listen to Senate testimony, it is nuts.
Jamie,
if you look at his record in terms of what he said, the policies he supported and written, put his name to, and the people he's challenged openly, Democrats and Republicans alike, for being weak on crime. And I agree with you. There are lots of people whose hands are dirty, including, by the way, Bernie Sanders, somebody I supported who also voted for the crime bill. Wasn't, by the way, it didn't take him like one day to get on the floor and decry it, unlike everybody else who voted for it. His reasons for backing it were not the crime bill, but for the Violence Against Women Act and a lot of other riders that were attached.
That's like me saying, I want to kill you, but I didn't kill you. I just stabbed you a little bit on your side.
No. Okay, so let me clarify, because I agree with that sentiment. I'm not separating Bernie Sanders from that vote. I think it was a horrible vote, and his hands are dirty as a result of it. My point is, he apologized for it immediately. Unlike,
but did anybody get out of jail on that apology?
What was that?
She said
nobody got out of jail on that apology.
I don't disagree with you. We were just talking. Okay, so I'm trying to stay on point with the things that we're all saying. So we talked about an apology. I think if Joe, like you said, Joe Biden's apology, from what I heard you say, my takeaway, and I agree with you, he did say that. That's a non-apology. It's not an apology. He either, if you're wrong, meaning if you take the tack that he is guilty for how the states interpreted that, yes, that's incorrect. If you talk about what he advocated bluntly while he was on the floor, I mean, there's reams of videotape about how vociferously he backed this.
I'm going to try. So this
his hands are all over it, and he did have relationships with a lot of those governors, and he's proud of that too, Republicans and Democrats alike. And by the way, some of those Republican governors had the torch picked up by Democrats who ran right along with it, completely without any remorse. This is a bipartisan problem. And one of the people who most directly has a burden that he needs to make, or a debt that he owes, is the man who's probably going to win the presidency in November, by the way, with my vote.
So we'll definitely, I think this episode will probably be the one that I put a bunch of stats on the screen while people are talking. So that'll be fun. So let me move on to a different topic. I got two vets on our show today. And so with that being said, Amanda, last time we were talking, you were all but certain that, Trump ain't got the juice to go in with nobody's military. And that show went out on the air. And about 2 days later, all these unmasked clandestine soldiers show up in Portland, snatching people up in minivans, beating up the wall of moms and the wall of vets. And I saw a video where a guy had his, he was holding up a sign and he kicked a tear gas can out back at the cops, and they shot him in the head with a rubber bullet and took him on out of here. Well, I don't think they killed him, but I mean, I don't think he remembers anything else that happened that night. You know what I mean? So my thing is what are you guys' thoughts on what ended up happening after we had the last that conversation?
Well, Attorney General Barr testified on, what was it, Tuesday?
Yeah, I
that
watched that.
that they didn't send anybody in. They don't know what we talking about. That those unmasked people were just vigilantes. That's
Yeah, right. Come on.
he,
I mean,
he
I was
said the
talking
only
about
thing that
how
they
he'll do
did
it
was,
again.
yeah, that
So
they were protecting federal buildings.
That's literally the Putin playbook then. That's the same thing that Putin did in Crimea. He sent Russian troops into Crimea and then said, I don't know who those guys are. Those are vigilantes. So Barr, are you telling me that that's what Barr did?
Yeah, he basically said the only thing they did was send federal troops in to guard the federal buildings because they were threatening to burn them down. And that's where they found the justification to send in actual, they was calling them stormtroopers online. But that's what they were sending them in with.
There's footage of people on boomboxes playing the Star Wars Stormtrooper music while they were walking down the street too.
But they claimed that they never engaged outside the federal buildings. So unless you was on the federal property buildings, then that was the only time. But then when they were questioned about how come they didn't send those same troops to Michigan when they were threatening the governor up there with, remember they was threatening the killer and chop her
who
head
was
off?
that question on that? Because she was giving them the business. Wasn't it a female giving them the business?
Yeah, it was Japal, I think Jetapal. She's from DC. She said, well, if you felt that way in Seattle, how come you didn't send these same federal troops up to Michigan to help the governor when they were on federal property, threatening her with guns and everything else? And you said that was a peaceful protest. So he didn't have an answer for that.
Oh, okay.
Because he was like, well, I'm going to have to look into that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is like, for me, is pretty much crazy. I don't necessarily know if it's military troops, but, you know, like the federal type, you know, like are definitely in there causing harm to regular citizens. And, you know, it's just really, really crazy and scary. I mean, they're supposed to come to Cleveland, possibly Columbus. It was Chicago.
And I think Detroit.
Yeah.
All the Democratic black cities, basically.
Yes, absolutely. And are you guys familiar with that umbrella man in Minneapolis?
Yeah, the guy he was breaking out the windows in the store trying to incite people to loot.
And they won't give us his name at all out here in the social media world. And a lot of people are speculating that was actually law enforcement attempting.
The police actually there's actually been news stories written about it. That said that police suspect him of being have ties to white supremacist organizations.
Yeah, so, but that doesn't mean he's not a cop too.
but where is Jim Jordan from? Because they said he's out of Ohio.
Yeah, he's from Ohio. He used to actually do Ohio. I think he was a wrestling coach at Ohio State or something like that.
Yeah, but we got to find his district and organize up there because he got to go. If you had seen that testimony. He is crazier than 3 left feet on Friday.
It looked like Ohio State has some Catholicism practicing up in their piece. You know what I'm saying?
So. But yeah, he was yelling over people and he refused to put his masks on and he was just out of control.
Yeah,
following in the grand tradition of the President of the United States and his deceased lackey, Herman Cain. I don't know how many, that's like how many in his own administration who went with him to the rally and God, where was it? Was it here?
Tulsa.
Yeah.
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah, like 7 of his own staff came down with it. Herman Cain went. I don't know how many people have to get it before. I mean, honestly, how much more evidence do you need? The pandemic is real.
I wonder
And
what do you guys think? I haven't, I haven't had a chance to watch Fox News today, but I wonder now that we all know that Herman Cain passed, I wonder if they're doing a bunch of coverage on Herman Cain's death, or will they just make it just a blur because they know that if they talk about Herman Cain's death, then they also have to talk about how real coronavirus is.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I will say about Herman Cain, like, I don't consider myself a Democrat or a Republican. I'm a true independent. And, when Herman Cain ran, he had like a pretty good tax plan. Like, it wasn't terrible until the scandal came out.
The 999 plan?
Yeah. I think that's what it was called, the 999 plan.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, like, Herman Cain wasn't like this just horrible person to my estimation. And we all will fault. And you know what? Just like if President Trump died tomorrow, I have a lot of problems with President Trump's presidency and him as a person, but I'm going to give that family time to grieve before I actually cast aspersions upon them.
Mm-hmm.
I have no problem, and I take great pleasure when horrible people shuffle loose their mortal coil. I don't think Herman Cain is in Trump's category, but since you brought him up, I would eulogize him without mercy. I've been a student of his antics for a couple of decades now. He is not a good person, and that's putting it lightly.
What about Biden?
What about him? How would I eulogize him?
I mean, he's in the same stratosphere as Herman Cain, Trump, all of them. In my estimation, like things he's done in the past, his association with the Strom Thurmonds of the year, the segregationists back in the 70s that were his mentors that were Republicans, but like he was good at going across the aisle with them, and that was part of his appeal for running with Obama.
Sure. I would probably have very few things to say about him that are pleasant, but nowhere near the vitriol of somebody like Trump. I mean, his Biden's political record and his personal life are bad. Or not his personal life so much, but his politics are bad. His ideas are bad. The people he's hurt are legion and all of that, but that fits well within a political framework that most people are pretty comfortable with.
In the Black community, we call that being big petty. In
my community, we call it being honest. If you thought they were an asshole in life, you're not being upfront by saying all of a sudden, because they're dead, they've grown, their heart has grown 3 sizes bigger.
No,
I'm
not
comfortable with whatever label you want to put on that. I'm just not going to do it.
Eulogize them and have a whole song made after them or anything like that. But I do think that there's a place to give people's family time to mourn.
Okay, so I agree with you in terms of I don't have a platform. So among people who didn't know him either, that's where I'm talking about. But I'm not going to run in to his.
You're not gonna run down. You ain't gonna run down the aisle at his funeral.
Yeah, you ain't gonna
and say good. And another place I would agree with you is if I did have, if I had Jahi's platform or bigger.
Okay.
Okay,
I feel that.
I would try to be sensitive to. Like I said, I wrote something about Herman Cain. I thought he was a truly awful person, and not because of his politics, because of him, right? But I spared a comment to say there are probably good people who are mourning him, and I wish them well.
But my thing is, I don't really know. I didn't really know him until I didn't know him until he ran for president. They said he was the guy from Godfather's Pizza.
Godfather's Pizza.
Right, and there was the clip of him singing some song, "Imagine There's No Pizza," instead of "Imagine There's No Heaven." and he tore the crowd up. The crowd loved it.
Oh, he's funny.
I think the part that I have a problem with is from a Herman Cain perspective. And again, you know, I empathize with the fact with his family because they're missing they're missing a loved one. Somebody loved him. He was surrounded by people at that Tulsa rally. The problem that I have is the fact that statistics show that if somebody's going to get that virus, it's probably going to be us. And if they die from it, they'll probably be us. So with that being the case, how can a man that smart, that intelligent, allow himself to be used by a president that, let's face it, at the end of the day, probably won't spare him more than 3 or 4 tweets, if that.
Well, can I say something? When you're a black celebrity, are you really us? When you're like floating millions and billions, are you really us?
But he wasn't floating billions.
Figuring that he's within this whole circle and bubble of influence that he's gonna be somehow spared, and he was not spared. And it's not even like
so let me get this straight. Gary. I just want to make sure.
Family member.
Gary, I just want to make sure that I have you correct. You're saying, are you asking us if we think he wouldn't change because he became rich, or are you saying that he should have known better that just because you are rich, you are still us?
It's a whole nother reality. It's a whole nother reality once you reach a certain different stratosphere.
Yeah, until Corona hits and reminds you.
Yeah.
Which
that's indiscriminate. That's indiscriminate.
Right, exactly.
My thing.
But you live in a discriminating world, and you're thinking that like certain things can't touch you because, you know, once you reach a certain status, you can't be touched. And I think that what really happened with them, he learned. I mean,
well, yeah,
we all learned that, hey, certain things don't discriminate.
Amanda?
My thing is that whether you like them or you hate them, or didn't like them, I should say, the level of disrespect shown for his passing, as far as we all know the man died from coronavirus. If anything, this is the Republicans' chance to just fall on the sword and be like, put on a mask.
Yeah.
You know, you can kind of tell that some of them been trying to inch over to that way to say it. But this was like, I don't want to use the man's death as an open door.
It was an alley-oop.
It was exactly. It was an alley-oop. Like, this was your chance to jump out and say it without looking like you a flip-flopper. You know, like, okay, our boy died. He died because of coronavirus. Now, through his death, I see we need to start getting serious. Right. Put on a mask. You know, let's.
Has anybody said that yet?
No, they're just praising his death. Because that's what I was looking up while you guys were talking. It was just kind of like he died. He was a great man, but there's nothing in there about fighting the disease or fighting the coronavirus or being more careful. This was their chance. Like, if anything, this gave them the open door, and they didn't even walk through it. They're still on the. Let's send all the kids back to school. Let's open everything up. Let's open up this. That's
Amanda,
I think. Yeah.
Can I pay homage to every point you just made? That's why Trump is losing by double digits. I think on average now it's like 9 or 10 points, and why it's looking like the Democrats are going to take the Senate and strengthen their hold in the House of Representatives.
Damn, Biden looked good the other day. Biden looked good the other day when he was speaking. Like, I was expecting him to be like Mitch mouth and all of that other stuff. He sounded good the other day.
I know I had fingers and toes and everything else crossed. Like, please don't give him a sound bite.
Yeah.
Please.
But now you know why they have him in the basement. So he can come out sporadically and do that without you required to cross your fingers and toes. It's look, I hate it, but it's working. I mean, you can't knock success.
And quiet as kept, Trump is burying himself. All he got to do,
brought
All
out,
you gotta do is just shut up.
so just to put it in perspective, before he canceled his coronavirus task force meetings, he went to the podium talking about
I love those. They were so hilarious.
and flashlight enemas, right? Then he canceled them and decided to bring them back because they got such high ratings. And he thought that the problem with those old task force meetings were the scientists who were there. So he decided to get rid of them and give us nothing but wall-to-wall Trump.
And then he complained because they had a higher approval rating than him.
Yeah.
And then what make it so bad, and this was another thing that came up at the bar hearing this weekend, or this past week. They asked Attorney General Barr about Trump and his whole injection of bleach. I think it was the representative out of Louisiana. I can't think of his name. Is a black guy. He asked him point blank. He said, "What do you think when the president said to inject yourself with bleach?" Then he was like, "He never said that." Come on, man. We all know he said it. He was like,
yeah, because they're still. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And then he kept saying, "I didn't get that from what he said." He didn't say specifically to inject yourself with bleach. He was just,
he was just, spitballing.
Freestyling.
Trying to find solutions out here. There are no wrong answers with the coronavirus.
And they asked him 3 times. Like the guy kept repeating. I gotta look up that representative's name because he was also the one who went after Gatz that one time.
No, that's Hakeem Jefferson.
Jeffries.
Hakeem Jefferson. Hakeem Jefferson.
But yeah, he asked him 3 times back to back. So, how do you feel about when he said inject yourself with bleach? Oh, he didn't say that. So are you saying that he never said? Oh no, he didn't say that. I'm like, are y'all serious?
Well,
is this working?
So I think he has a semantic argument to make there. Although my takeaway was he's telling everybody to inject themselves with bleach. But for his loyal following, he did technically just make that a question to the doctor sitting behind him. And these are the semantic arguments they're making. And you know who those arguments are working on? Exactly nobody. He's down in every demographic. He's not losing in every demographic, but he's down significantly even with his most ardent supporters.
See, this is the part that I think is the crazy part, right? He had 36% that was like unbreakable. At the last check, I think I heard, I'm pretty sure he was at 32%. He's been at the lowest he's ever been is 36%, 37% since 2016 when he took office. But he actually hit 32%, which means that cement bubble that his core fan base is in even the perimeter of that is starting to crack.
Yeah. Biden's biggest problem is voter turnout. What would a voter turnout be? And that's why he's coming out to kind of speak a little more, because if he doesn't have the turnout, he's in trouble, because you're going to have those Trump people who no matter what.
The Trump people are going to show up. They're going to show up.
I think that's a decent concern, but here's the counter argument to that. He won the old people. He's winning the old people, and quite frankly, that's why him and the DNC are ignoring the left of the base because they don't need us. Because he's got the suburban vote, and he's got the old vote, and this is the breakdown also in terms of voting. Vote by mail is going to be huge. They're expecting, and here's the thing: that starts up to 50 days before November, 28 days here in Ohio. So going back to Kentucky, the reason why Amy McGrath won over Jamal Bowman was the mail-in vote. He killed her in terms of same-day voting, but people had already voted before his campaign had a chance to gain the momentum that it ended up with. So she squeaked by. It's likely going to, if mail-in voting turns out to be as big as everyone thinks it is, amongst specific demographics like the elderly, and it's looking like that's how it's going to happen. Yes, turnout is something you should be concerned about, but it may not be. At the end of this, we may look back and go, we may be looking at one of the biggest landslides in American history.
But I'm looking for straight up
about the mail. The fact that they're saying that the Postmaster General that just took over is looking for ways to slow the mail down.
Yeah.
That's
because
not,
their
that's
budget
not
is
conspiracy theory. That's real.
Yeah, they've been leaking money.
Their budget is running out. They haven't approved the new budget for the Postal Service. So since their budget has not been approved
right now,
Mhm.
because I really want to see a straight up election where this dude can't contest whether he lost or won, because like he's looking for something to stay in there a couple extra months or create a civil war if he loses. I'm telling you,
and what makes me so mad is that they don't even read, because even if he contests the election and try to even move it from the November date,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, if he moves it from the November date, it doesn't matter, because January 19th, if we don't have an election or election results, he has to leave office anyway, and Nancy Pelosi becomes president. So we win if he stays or if he goes.
Their Bob. We definitely have a civil war.
Her term is up in November as well.
But the last time you made a decree like that, stormtroopers showed up in Portland. So,
but no, this is an actual law.
Forgive me for being a little terrified that maybe a man might decide you know what, that's the rule I don't want to pay attention.
It's the Secession Act of 2003. I believe that's the name of the actual.
I totally believe you when it comes to the constitutional norms and laws that you're talking about. I'm just saying, I am nervous that he may decide, that's not the ones I want to listen to today.
I'm not. Yeah, I personally am not at all worried.
Barr is gonna say, man. Because you heard him today. Like they said, what will you do if he decides to contest? And I'm paraphrasing, and his words weren't, because they asked him in a way to say, would you tell him to get out or would you help remove him? And he said, I will leave. He ain't saying nothing about what he would do.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't.
To me,
I honestly don't think
terrified right now.
You shouldn't be. There's nothing there that. There are things you should be terrified about him. Like he could choose to say, "I'm not going anywhere." The election was rigged. Fine. I don't see anybody backing him to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
I see Biden snapping his fingers and having Trump's fat orange ass removed. That's not the problem, though. The problem will be the civil unrest.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
That's brought up by that. Now, that's not a threat to our republic. That's a threat to people's life and limb. And the people who are likely going to get hurt are going to be, for example, if the protests are still going on, and it looks like they might, protesters who are just going to be absolutely vulnerable, and they're going to be caught in the crossfire between these radical Trumpists and the troops that were sent out there to deal with the anarchistic protesters who are like 99.9% peaceful. So that's the thing I would be more worried about than anything. But Trump staying in office, if he loses, isn't one of those concerns.
But let's be fair. It's going to be a couple of cities that burn down some buildings if Trump wins re-election. Let's just be real about it.
I'm not going to say that I'm looking forward to it, but I definitely will capitalize by saying, well, you can't blame black people for burning up stuff when they're mad no more. I will definitely have that to say if it does go down that way. So we'll see what happens. I definitely agree with everything you said, Amanda. And I read what you wrote, and I saw somebody else that wrote something similar. And it did give me great comfort to know that at least somebody thought of the what if scenario, and it actually plays out.
Yeah, she will become president, and then I believe it's the highest Senate, which I think his name is Grassley, like Tom or Ted Grassley. He will become vice president. Interim. They'll just be interims, but
now
was her re-election at all? Technically, then
isn't her term up in November?
Yes, but even if she loses, it'll be whomever the Democrats, as long as they keep the House, it'll be whomever they name as Speaker of the House.
Right, but it won't necessarily. It won't be Nancy Pelosi.
And this is the thing they said. They said that if anybody who's up for re-election, if there's no election, the governors of that state will be able to select who they want to fill that position. And since she's from California, they would just keep her where she is. So yeah, she probably would end up being president.
Yeah,
but it's just crazy the fact that we're pondering that's a legitimate conversation. We're sitting there like, so what if this guy decides he doesn't want to leave? Like, when in the history of this country did we ever have that conversation, aside from like the first 3 presidents? You know what I mean?
I'm curious to see how like the during World War II, because we had a 3-term president during that time, and I haven't researched how that actually occurred.
I think who's that? Was it Teddy Roosevelt?
The term limit thing for president didn't exist when FDR.
FDR, it didn't? Okay.
Yeah, it did. I thought that the reason why it existed was because he did that 3rd term. And then that's when the law.
Because everybody, it was just like an honor system type thing. Like George did 2, we all do 2. And then Roosevelt said, yeah, but I think I want to do a 3rd.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
So
can I ask a question real quick?
Yep.
So I work in the education setting right now. What would be your plans of reentry of kids into schools? How would you operate it, say if you were a politician, a mayor, a governor of a state?
Are we starting right now, or are we starting back?
Right now. Right now.
So we're starting back. If we're starting right now, the only thing you can do is virtual. That's the only. That's really the only thing that you can do. You can't send kids back to school like this. If we could get something on board where if we were like a normal country and wearing masks for safety purposes for the greater good of society wasn't politicized, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. But
you can't have kids under 8 wear masks. They'll tear them off.
Well, yeah, and that's the reason why
they love each other.
And that's the reason why you can't send them back to school.
Yeah.
Now, see, I fall in a different category because my son is special needs. He has autism. So online school is rough, to say the least. He ain't going to sit still for online school. So in my situation, my son starts back to school September 2nd. But at the same instance, his classroom only got 5 kids in there. He has 5 kids, 2 adults. So
it's a whole different situation from a
normal classroom.
Well, that is part of the Ohio mandate. All special needs kids will go back full time. Like, right, because as far as the ODE guidance I saw for Ohio, that they go full time, and like they had these other suggestions for all these other districts. But you have to understand that.
Yeah, my concern is that these kids have been out of school since March, or out of the building, I should say, since March. Why is it taking them so long to come up with a plan? I mean, I can understand, okay, they were waiting to see if we was going to skyrocket again, go up, go down. But the second they've realized that we may go back into another quarantine, a plan should have hit the table that next morning. Like, they should have already come together.
I just found out 2 days ago which school my kid is going to.
Right.
In their defense, though.
It's almost August, you know what I mean?
In their defense, I've talked to several administrators of different buildings. Like, this is an ongoing, changing type thing as far as, like, what the virus is, what the virus does. And then Trump comes out like, if you guys don't have school, we're not going to give you funding for pretty much special needs kids. And I don't blame
the local administrations. I'm talking about the Ohio Department of Education. They have a whole building here, downtown, where between those floors, they should have had a plan A, B, and C. If the coronavirus is under control, the kids are going to do this. B, if the coronavirus is not.
The micro level too within the classroom, like what happens if kids are playing around and like acting like they're coughing on each other? What happens if like this partition falls, or like one teacher in the building becomes COVID positive?
And that's what's gonna happen.
Violate their HIPAA.
And that's what's gonna happen. I agree, Jay. One teacher. is going to come down with it, and they're going to shut the whole city down.
Man, look, every time, like, where we work, where, Jamie and I work, if one person gets it, if you get it, the expectation is you report it and go into quarantine. Or if you are around somebody who has been diagnosed, you go into quarantine for almost 2 weeks, 14 days, I think.
Have you ever had to deal with parents?
I think that's the CDC guideline too. That's the CDC guidelines anyway. So what are you going to do? If you say you want to send all the children back to school, I get it. Trust me, I want to send my kid to school. It is weird having your kid at home. And my kid is an extrovert, man. He loves being around people.
Yeah.
Take him to the park. He want to play with the other kids, and we got to pull them away. Their parents pulling them away. It's weird right now. And I feel sorry for these kids right now because they don't know what's going on. And these are formative social years for these kids. And we're doing these weird things with them to protect them and ultimately, protect the family and protect the public. So it's really sad, and it's really disappointing that our politicians and our leaders that we put in positions to face these challenges and make some sort of a plan that can help us. I mean, that's literally what we put you there for. They're unwilling to do anything about it. Still, no matter how many people die, they're unwilling.
I don't. Okay, so I can't speak to a lot of your personal experiences with the school system, so I'm just not competent to do that. But money, I think we can all latch on to. The state governments are now begging for help, begging.
Yeah.
Part of what you need to do to make, if you're going to put the kids back in school, a lot of the stuff you talked about, like the practical concerns about, monitoring their behavior so they don't spread the disease, ripping each other's masks off. That's not just 8-year-olds. It's going to be a lot of kids, I would imagine. I don't have any, but I've seen them play. But what you need, what you need is pretty much what we're seeing in grocery stores and stuff. You need space and you need money. You need money to put up those partitions. You need to build more buildings to hold all of the kids base level. Then there's all the micro concerns we've talked about that are going to make it very hard. But planning is one thing, but money is like the foundation of everything. If you don't have the facilities to carry out a plan that makes sense, it doesn't get everybody killed.
And most of them don't have the facilities because if you put partitions, like I went to school at Woodrow Wilson. If you were to put certain dudes behind partitions, there might be a girl back there with them. You know what I'm saying? So it's just not practical.
And you got to think about it.
You open up a whole nother set of concerns.
From a parent's point of view, because like Jahi has little boys, if him and his wife had to go back to work, them waiting this long to come up with the virtual plan, daycares are full. We can't just, and that's where I said I was ticked off because they waited so long. Like if I had to find somewhere for my son to go, I wouldn't have anywhere for him to go when they started back on the virtual side. Because again, I still have to go to work. Even though I'm working from home, I can't do both. So I would have been.
So what I've heard about from people who have kids that are in college, that the universities are basically saying, we're going to send the kids back long enough to get the federal funding, and then we're going to send them right back home.
Yep.
Which sucks for the kids that are coming from out of state to move into the dorms for 3 weeks just to get sent back home.
Yeah, so you can get the funding.
Well, my cousin goes to Tuskegee, and she's up here interning right now, actually. But they told her that it's basically her choice. Like, oh, well, we're taking all the classes online. Now, if you want to come down there and stay in the dorms, you can. But all of your classes is going to be online. So it's like, why even send them down there? But some of the kids are still, just to have that college experience, they're basically traveling just to do online classes that they can do from home. But
I heard that some of them, they're trying to just charge them all out fees, even if they don't even come down there and stay, because they offered it, and that's definitely not right at all.
Yeah, we definitely have some things to work out This has definitely been one of the more lively discussions. It's more like crossfire today. But it was very well and very good, and I appreciate you guys for coming on. So this part of the show is called Unsolicited Advice, and so I'm gonna ask everybody, and I'm gonna start with you, Gary, and then we'll go to Amanda, and we'll come back around full circle to Jamie and myself. But who do you have unsolicited advice for today? And I'll let you start it off, Gary.
I'm gonna just piggyback off of one of your past podcasts. If you urinate in a groundhog's hole, it definitely, you know, like I don't know who I got that from, but it definitely does work.
Amanda knows who that is.
As my old grandfather saying, it works.
All right, so you know what? I'm gonna give it a shot because it's so funny now. The groundhog he ain't even scared no more. He just come up on the patio and lay out on the chairs and suns himself. And he tap on the window, and he look up, lay back, and I don't mean like laying normal, like on his back, just chilling.
He like Tommy from Martin, huh?
It's crazy. Amanda?
My advice, just get ready for the Biden-Harris ticket. It's coming next week. He's going to make a selection. We going to get on board, and we're going to get her in there. Or them, I should say them. We're going to get them in there in November.
I think you're probably right. I'm holding the flame for Tammy Duckworth, but we'll see how it shakes out.
I'll start listening to my Cardi B.
Jamie?
Matter of fact, I got a call with them next week.
Oh, who?
I told you I'm K-High because they're mainly in California, so it's like 6-something their time. But they have a call at 7 about campaigning.
Okay, all right then. We'll see. Jamie?
No, go ahead, Amanda.
Oh no, I'm done.
And one last thing. The thing about Kamala for me, and I'm gonna just leave it there, is here. If you think I'm gonna do something specifically for Black people, no, that soundbite is terrible for her. It's terrible. All right, so I'm gonna just leave that there. Kamala.
All
right. So this is what I think. I'll say this, and then Jamie, I'll give you the floor. One thing that I've seen you talk about online, Gary, where you say that there definitely needs to be a push to get Black engagement up. I agree wholeheartedly with that. That is something that they can't ignore, and they need to really make sure that they don't fall into the same trap and fall into the same what word am I looking for?
Just taking us for granted.
Tim Kaine this election.
That they were just so positive they had the black vote in the bag that they just trotted out Beyonce and Jay-Z in Cleveland and thought that was going to seal the deal. And they got to get out here and earn some of these votes. There are people like I think like us that are very engaged when it comes to politics. And we look at the landscape and say, okay,
there are tons of people.
I'm going to go ahead and vote for Biden. I might not like everything about him, but I'm going to vote. But then there are other people who have a lot of questions and they don't feel that way. And so you got to get out there somehow and kind of engage those people and get those votes. Don't leave them on the floor. Don't leave them on the table. Go out there and secure those votes.
Do you know that it's a down ballot voter campaign out there where you only vote down ballot and you don't vote the top of the ballot?
That's what they did in Michigan.
Say that,
in 2016. That's exactly how Hillary lost Michigan.
So basically, they said vote down ballot, but ignore Hillary's ballot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And Biden is in that area. Kamala, you're in that area. Y'all better speak specifically to Black people, specifically, and stop. And I'm not trying to because this can be a whole nother show, the minority talk. It needs to be something specific for your most loyal base in the
I
last.
agree. Now that I agree with.
But see, that's where I think it gets confused, because you got to recognize who the true base is. I know progressive movement has been making their stance, and some of their stuff I agree with, but they have to realize they're not the base. The base is more people who will vote for Biden or Kamala. I mean, we might not be on Twitter or on Facebook or making that much noise, but if anything, the voting booth this year showed you that more people are not middle to left, right. They're more conservative, I would say, Democratic than
I think you just had
actual.
shitty candidates and ain't many people show up and vote.
There's no
Yeah,
data.
but Bernie was leading all the way through. If the progressives had matched the voting booth like they matched their mouths online, we will be looking at a Democrat-elect Sanders right now.
Okay.
But
Well, Bernie shot himself
unfortunately,
in the foot when he said he didn't know what reparations were.
All right.
When Bush people
Jamie.
got
well,
reparations.
that's another podcast.
Jamie-
I'm sorry.
So if Jamie had a background right now, it would probably. Can you see the look on Jamie's face? I'm sure. I don't think he has anything to say on this topic whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm not going to bore anybody with it now. This is the bottom line. Some of what was just said is true. Progressives failed; they got outmaneuvered. But the fact of the matter is, just about every position that Bernie has now enjoys like 70 to 90% approval from Democrats, even 40% Republicans, 60% of independents, are for things like raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour or more, Medicare for all. I could go on and on. That's irrelevant because we lost. We failed to maneuver. Bernie failed to utilize any of his power to do anything other than basically hand the thing over to Joe Biden from the beginning. And let's be clear about his role in the Democrat Party. He is a member in good standing of the Democrat Party. He had leadership of a committee, the Veterans Affairs Committee. He's a mainstream Democrat, and that's why he bent the knee in both 2016 and 2020. So, Bernie, for people like myself, was the compromise, not the hero. So, but that is not my unsolicited advice. My unsolicited advice is don't give away your vote. But look, however you feel about Joe Biden, whether you feel the way I do or anyone else does, he literally did nothing to earn anybody's vote. By the time the primaries came around, the only real campaigning he'd done was in South Carolina. And to his credit, that gamble paid off. But he had his offices basically locked up and chained in California. He hadn't been in most of the states where he overwhelmingly won in the South during mini Super Tuesday. Super Tuesday, and again a mini Super Tuesday. So I understand everybody's main priority was beat Trump, and at the time, the decision was, I like Bernie, but I think Biden or someone other than Bernie is going to do better. And it wasn't always Joe Biden, by the way. So my advice would be, just to tie it up, is we all as Democrats have this really nasty habit of pretending to be smarter than we really are. And the problem with that, vote for what you want. Stop trying to figure out what everybody else wants and vote that way. For those who fall into this category, stop doing that. If there's a policy you like that Joe Biden has, vote for Joe Biden and do it with conviction. If there's a policy that Herman Cain had, for God's sakes, vote for Herman Cain. But stop trying to figure out who everybody else likes and vote that way because you hate the person who's currently in the Oval right now. And I think more to the discussion that was had earlier, the top of the ultimate top of the ticket is not where you should be focusing your attention. It's these local elections where really the policy rubber hits the reality road. Like what we were talking about with schools. And Amanda sort of touched on this with Joe Biden's support of the crime bill. the battle was in the states. And I would argue at more local levels than that, the counties and the municipalities, and how communities relate to the police and hold their precincts accountable. So my advice again is stop trying to play junior political scientist and just vote your conscience, what you want for this country, and put your shoulders behind it. And then let's see if Amanda's right. Is this country really, quote, centrist, whatever that means? Are they? The polls don't indicate that, but we certainly don't vote that way. So I'm done. I love you all.
My unsolicited advice today is for all the streaming services. Peacock, there's a new thing called Peacock now. There's Quibi. Listen, man, I'm not buying all these different streaming services. Stop it. I know you don't want to, you know.
You gotta stop the monopoly, man.
Listen, man, Netflix.
Peacock is free.
It's free until you don't want something else, and then they upsell you somewhere else later. And then they're trying to, then they want your data. You're paying. You're just paying because they know what you're shopping for online when the lights is off. They know what your browser history looks like, which I think is actually more expensive than Netflix. I think I just paid it $10. So, you know, HBO Max is now, they used to have HBO Now and HBO Go. And I had HBO Go, and apparently today is the 30, whatever the day the 30, tomorrow is the last day that app will work. And then you have to switch over to HBO Max. But man, I don't remember my HBO Go password. And so now I got to take the time to spend trying to figure out what my damn HBO password is so I can use an app that I'm already paying for.
Yeah.
Man, what they should have done is just said, if you already have your app and it works, you just click this button and it automatically updates it to HBO, whatever the hell it is called nowadays. And then we just move forward from there. But look, man, I'm not buying all these extra things when I can very easily go online and just go ahead and get a Fire Stick and call it a day. Don't play it so. You know, make some sort of deal with one of these other platforms and let's make it work. Disney Plus is the last stop I'm making on this train, and I'm out.
All right.
That's all
I like HBO Max.
Say what?
I like my HBO Max.
Yep.
It has DC on there. It has
I'm
a
not
little bit of
hip to
everything.
HBO Max.
I got HBO Go right now, which means I already own HBO Max, but I can't get into the damn thing because I can't remember what my email address is or the password. So now
How does that make you feel?
Emails like this CSI investigation is trying to figure out, like put all the clues together, like it's Tom Hanks in the damn Da Vinci Code. When all you guys had to do was make it so it says, "Do you want to upgrade this shit to HBO Max?" Yes, I do. That's what you should.
But you know, the Max app is not on the Roku or Amazon Fire Stick. I just wanted to point that out. It's not on either one.
On Roku?
Well,
you got to get it through an iPad or the phone or somewhere and streamcast it to your TV.
I have it on my. I have a thing called a NVIDIA Shield. I have it on both TVs. So the app exists, sitting right next to HBO Go. And HBO Go is just sitting there calling me saying, hey, so you know tomorrow's the last day to use us, and then we're closed forever.
Because I had HBO through Amazon, and when I switched over to Max, they didn't have an app for it.
See?
And they don't foresee getting an app for it. And Bezos, matter of fact, him and Facebook, they were on CNN today. As you can see at work, in my background, all I have is CNN. But they were interviewed today by the House Judiciary Committee. That was interesting too, but that's another topic.
Oh, they were going hard.
Very good topic.
Super hard at all of those media services.
They're trying to break all of them.
Yeah, like they're too big.
Well, I mean, Jeff Bezos is basically Lex Luthor at this point. I mean,
they're not trying to break anything. That's just theater. All of them both sides of the aisle get a considerable amount of money from both. And Jeff Bezos is well on his way to becoming the country's first, well, I think the world's first trillionaire. So
Nah. Google.
they're fine.
Google's already worth $1 trillion.
Yeah, but I'm talking about him.
Oh, him personally. Oh.
Yeah, like he's
that
on his way
feel
to
like
become a
that, to
trillionaire.
have money like that, though,
Mm-hmm.
What must that?
Because I think he had to give his wife, when they divorced, I think she's worth like $700 billion now, and she was just giving away billions to local charities like it was dollar bills or something.
Listen, the president, nobody's anything to you at that point.
Right.
You know, you got properties that are like, miles and miles around, and like you can't be touched.
You could literally buy a country, and not one of these little island countries with like 17 people, but like a legitimate country. You could buy one with a real name and an Olympic team.
Yeah.
You got $1 trillion.
The only Republican that wants to see Jeff Bezos die, like drown in a pool of his own blood, is Trump. And that's because he owns the Washington Post, and the Washington Post doesn't write very nice things about President Trump. But Mitch McConnell and that group is perfectly comfortable taking him, allowing their members to take him to task when the cameras are rolling on C-SPAN or CNN or wherever. But when it comes down to doing something about it, for one thing, I'm not even sure what they want to do about it.
Zuckerberg caved to Trump. Zuckerberg didn't want to smoke with Trump.
Mm-hmm.
You said you don't want no problems with Trump?
Zuckerberg didn't want any smoke with Trump.
Right.
So
well, who I don't want no smoke with? HBO. Get that shit together, HBO.
Rub a lamp, partner.
Get it together.
Trouble is coming.
All right, guys, I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for coming on. Gary, Amanda, Jamie, much appreciated.
All right, great times.
Thanks. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Oh, shout out to my mom's shirt she bought me. So she didn't think I
got on my Maxine shirt.
What's it say? Reclaiming my time.
Don't forget about Preem. Pizza rules everything around me. Summer Huskies down in Nashville, Tennessee. Black-owned business. Atlanta. They got new stores, so please go ahead and shop.
Sounds good.
Superman. We're done here.
All right, y'all. Have a good one.
You too.